AI isn't the problem. AI is the flashlight. And if your team dynamic is a little messy, then AI is just going to make that more visible, but this time in 4K. Listen, AI is triggering a lot of excitement and fear and confusion in the workplace, certainly. But we know that belonging is about understanding the clarity, having clarity, understanding everyone's voice and their contribution within the workplace. When you understand that, people start to gain shared ownership. They start to feel and lean into how it is that they can be part of the evolution, the adoption, right, in a responsible way. Today, we're talking about how to use AI to evolve the team without splitting it into this AI haves and AI have nots, right? Those who know and those who don't. We don't want to fracture your team. So let's talk about how leaders can use AI as a catalyst for belonging across the generations. Welcome to the Generational Edge with Kristina Green podcast. I am your host, Kristina Green, the generational translator. And I'm the referee for the generations. I'm in the workplace and in the wild. I don't take sides, but I will call out the bias, the assumptions, and that back in my day energy that is keeping your team stuck. Joining me today is Dr. Michelle Karyn Paul, an industrial organizational psychologist and transformation leader who's spent 25 plus years inside the real work of change, helping teams improve performance, rebuild how they work together, and stay healthy while doing it. She started in Silicon Valley with high growth tech, and since then, she has led large scale transformation across government, nonprofit, and commercial organizations. Today, she is the president of Equifinality Solutions, where she helps organizations adopt AI responsibly with governance, workforce upskilling, and process redesign that doesn't wreck trust. Okay, so Dr. Michelle, thank you so much for joining us today. I'm so happy to have you.
Oh, it's my pleasure. I'm really excited for our conversation.
Oh, me too. Me too. So, with that said, so let's jump right in. Let me ask you, so when leaders say that we're adopting AI, are you finding that people are responding with a deep sigh, with fear, with curiosity, or resistance, or something else? Tell us more about what you're seeing.
I'm really seeing all of what you mentioned and more. I'm seeing a large range of responses. And I think it really depends on folks' individual experiences in their own role in their organization, their historical, experiences with technology in their role, and also their personal lives, right? So we don't just walk through some invisible boundary when we leave our personal lives and come to work. We are the whole people. So depending on what things somebody has already used in their personal world, that's going to also affect their attitudes about receptivity to and enthusiasm for AI. And people are rightly concerned about AI. So I just want to put that out ahead of time. I'm obviously an enthusiast because this is part and parcel of what I do with my clients all day. But I do make sure to focus on responsible and ethical use because there are some pretty disastrous risks and problems that are occurring with AI that need each of us to be individual actors in the game of promoting healthy use of technology and AI in particular. So I think it's helpful when we approach the conversation being super transparent and open about the risks and having organizations really foster an environment of open discussion and honoring where everybody is coming from all over that continuum that you mentioned.
Yeah. Yeah. And creating, I'm curious to understand how it is that leaders can really start to lean into creating this sense of belonging, right, in the workplace as they're adopting AI responsibly. And that's why I certainly was so excited to talk to you about this because, as you know, in the work that I do with generations, this is not always met with a red carpet or a confetti, right, where everyone is excited about it, and so everyone feels differently going into it. So curious about the thought about, kind of the potential divide or split within the workforce where you have
Mhm.
some who might catch on real quickly, who might adopt it very quickly because they might not feel threatened. You
Yeah.
have others who might be, who've experienced in their careers layoffs. They've experienced, a backlash of technology developing, and how do we prevent this split between these AI haves, if you will, and have nots,
Mhm.
right? Thoughts on that?
A lot of thoughts on that. So AI adoption is happening both as a like led by senior leadership, people who are forward thinking and want to make sure that their organization is responding and benefiting from all that AI has to offer. So there's some adoption that does occur that's driven by visionary senior leaders. Okay. But there's also adoption that occurs just as commonly, if not even more frequently, in more of a grassroots manner. So a team or a department might catch on to a particular use of AI, and then they start building momentum within that team or department. Now, both types of AI adoption hit the workforce differently. I find that when it is a visionary senior leader, that person's approach and not only their statements, but their actions set a tone. And it hopefully creates an environment where experimentation is valued, where open conversations about both the enthusiasm of the benefits AI can bring and also fear and people being scared about the risks and other very bona fide challenges. So if the senior leader has that strong vision and can promote and really foster and facilitate this culture of openness and experimentation, that can be really amazing for people. And it can start to help folks find the particular space where they fit into the equation, right? Now, the grassroots and kind of department and team driven version also can create the same ending of the story. It just happens a little bit differently. And it's a little bit more risky because there's more of this in-group, out-group dynamic that occurs. There's more of the rumor mill that occurs. Oh, this person's team over there in this department is doing all this stuff. What does that mean to us? Why aren't we doing anything? Right. And so there's a little bit more of a haphazard, jagged experience by the individual employees. But either approach can work if, again, that culture of experimentation is lifted up as a need, and there's valuing of all of the diversity of perspectives and backgrounds and talents in an organization. I'll make one more comment about experimentation, which I find fascinating, and that's that unless you've been in a company or an organization that creates products, you probably haven't been in an organization that knows anything about experimentation, right? A product
Right.
company develops prototypes, they run, exercises on experimenting with the product until it's at a point where they can put it out to market, and that permeates the rest of the organization's DNA. But most of us are not in organizations that have had that experience. And now with AI, we're being told go out and experiment, but we don't know how to do that. We've never been taught how to do that. We don't understand how to do it safely. We don't have visible models of how this is done. And so that, again, that culture of experimentation needs to be built pretty quickly right now. And the idea of failing fast and failing forward and all this stuff that we hear along the business community and all the writing, it's really true. You do need to have that culture as you're developing AI, or else it's going to be a fractured sort of experience for staff instead of one where it's actually a belonging force, right? Because belonging, as it relates to AI, is kind of made up of three things. It's shared language, it's shared
Mhm.
guardrails, and it's shared chances to try and experiment. So
Oh.
that's what I would, my kind of capstone comment on that part is it really needs those three pieces for anyone in an organization to be part of this incredible change that we're all experiencing.
No, and Dr. Michelle, you bring up such a very good point that the majority of organizations that are going to be looking to leverage AI in some capacity, that they do not know what it's like to experiment, right? I mean, I'll raise my hand. I come from healthcare. There's no experimentation that's happening in the administrative side, right? That's where my expertise in. The last time I've experimented was probably in 12th grade. Right? Or college biology lab or something, and that was the last time I've been able to, to form a hypothesis and test it, right? And so to
Yes.
your point, how do we kind of equip these leaders to really understand how to take those guided steps to form some structure around the experimentation that's necessary so we not only ethically can step into AI and leverage it, but, feel comfortable in doing so.
A first step is one that unfortunately I find with a lot of my clients that they haven't taken yet, and that's to issue a AI usage guideline document, not just issue the document, by the way, but articulate it and bring it into the daily work of folks, but have that as a ballast for folks to refer to, right? And that's before an organization even develops a formal AI policy. You need to give your staff usage guidelines. They need to
Yeah.
know what's okay and what's not okay. And it all needs to be grounded in the organization's mission and values. So it needs that way. It's like it's more of a harmonious experience for the employee. And they are able to understand where it makes sense to experiment, where, because part of the conversation is always, in my opinion, not only where we can use AI, but where we should not use AI, right? That's just as important of a conversation to
Right.
have. And so if each employee is given a usage guidelines and knows where they have freedom to experiment, where the organization condones using AI, where they think AI could help solve business problems or help, create more efficiency and maybe frankly do a better job of matching somebody's task to who should be doing that task. We all have work as part of our roles that frankly probably should be done by machines. It could be done by machines better. It's going to have less error. It's going to be faster, right? There's other parts of our roles that should always remain human. It should
Yeah.
never be performed by the machine. So these types of guidelines at the very top level of the organization, again, grounded in their vision, mission, and values, but then leaders need to translate that into what is meaningful for their teams, departments, groups, units, etc. And so one thing I like to do is provide leaders with structured dialogue questions to insert into their routine team meeting. And I counsel people to make sure that you're reserving a slot in your agenda on a routine basis for an open conversation about AI. And you might cycle through some of these structured questions. You also might have a rotational role for people on your team to kind of lead that discussion. It doesn't always have to be the quote leader to be the one to facilitate that dialogue. And that helps to, again, democratize this whole thing. So those are some things that I stress with leadership at all levels. And I think that, belonging as it relates to AI, and that's not going to come from everyone using it the same way. It's going to
Yeah.
come from everyone having a fair chance to learn, test, evaluate, contribute to it.
Oh, absolutely. I love quite a few points of what you're calling out. Essentially, is that there's got to be an intentionality, right, with how it is that they're approaching and leveraging AI, and that's not something that it just comes out of the box. It actually requires the work behind it, right, to actually to lean in to understand what is meaningful, because everybody knows ChatGPT, but it is one AI, right, amongst what thousands now, if not more, that can and or should be leveraged. And so, to your point about having kind of like the guidelines to say, here's where we're okay with using it, here's guidelines on the use of it, and here is also to where we should not be diving into that, right? Where I go to in healthcare is, of course, we should not be putting PHI into ChatGPT,
Yeah,
right? Those are
right.
obvious things. But are there other that maybe are universally understood around how we should not be leveraging AI, right? Where the human, right, should be at the forefront of the work that is done in that area. Any that come to mind?
Oh, yes. So, one heuristic that I share with all my clients, they love it. It's so simple, but I call it Michelle's 40-60 rule. You, as a individual, whoever you are, whatever role you're in, whatever history you have in that organization, outside of that organization, you are the expert. You are the one with the talent, the expertise, and the domain knowledge of your particular role. And so when you're interacting with AI, maybe you're getting AI to help you with something. Never consider AI to be more than 40% of your total work product or thing that you're working on.
Mhm.
Always keep it in your mind that you are a minimum of 60% and it is a maximum of 40. Right? It's going to kind of vary. It's very, very general concept, but that really helps people internalize the fact that they are the ones that are in charge, that their brain and their human talent is what we want. We want more of that, actually. So we want these tools to help bring out our talents, and help us do more of what is meaningful to us and is meaningful to our organization. So that's one
Mm.
thing I like to cover with folks. The other thing is that when we as teams should inspect our work, we should sit down. We don't have to take millions of hours for this, but examine the work that you do as a team, as a collective, and say, where in this work are we making decisions? Are we making decisions that impact people? Or are we making conclusions and judgments about things that then trigger something else to happen later? And in those situations, we do not want to use AI. We want to have AI advise us on what decision might be the best, give us pros and cons about various alternatives. We might
Mhm.
engage AI to help us find our blind spots that we have in our decision making process. Like, be a critical thinking partner. Do not be the decider, right? So that's another guideline that pretty much everyone needs to be holding on to. There is actually in the U.S. recently, we as a country, for in terms of federal regulation, have kind of backed off on introducing a lot of AI regulation. In the EU, in the European Union, and in other zones of the world, there is a more, not aggressive, assertive uh, part of having regulation around where you can use AI, where you can't, what it needs to look like, and all the governance risk implications. So in the States, we don't have that really, but what we do have is we have this weird mixture of local laws. There's one in New York that tells you that you can't use AI for a hiring decision.
Hmm.
So you need to check wherever you're operating your company, business, organization, whatever, and you need to look at your local regulations and make sure that you're in compliance with them. But it's a weird patchwork of those, and they're changing a lot. So what I like to tell people is you got to make your own statement as your own organization in your business area, in your mission area, and you got to make your own point of view and share that with your staff. And that should be the thing that guides them, generally speaking. I'll make one more comment about this, which is super
Yeah.
interesting to me. And that's that. So I've spent 25 years helping organizations with transformation, change, technology adoption. I started out in Silicon Valley back in the 90s. The world's changed. But one thing that I've seen over the years is that when we bring technology into our organizations, the technology typically comes with its own business processes attached to it. So if we are moving our marketing function from one software system to another software system, the new one is going to tell us, if we're marketing experts, how to use the software, right?
Yeah.
It's prescribed. AI is not. AI is completely left up to the individual in many cases. It isn't if it's brought into a workflow automation and then it's working in the background. But in terms of how we are choosing to use it for our own individual productivity, for brainstorming, for all the things that we've been talking about, critical thinking partner, et cetera, and also potentially helping us write and develop our work products, we are making micro choices all day long about how we're using this technology. Like, we're not told by a business process how to use it. So
Yeah.
what drives people's decisions in those situations? Think about it for a minute. It's our personal values. It's what you do in your specialty area with our generational understanding of ourselves and our place in the world. It's also our amount that we've internalized our organization's values and what we see as our role in that larger organizational picture. So that's
Right.
what's actually driving how we choose to use these tools. It's so interesting. So it just brings back and underscores a lot of what you write, speak, and help organizations do, which is to understand how and be more intentional about how those organizational values are embodied in their workforce, right? So it
Yeah.
just makes that even more important today.
Yeah. Oh, and I appreciate that lens because I absolutely agree with you. And I would say that that organic, right? And how it is that they are moving into a decision, how it's the secret sauce that is not something that's understood by a computer, right? Or generative AI, any of that. It's the sometimes you go back to childhood. Sometimes you go back to something that a teacher said to you, right? Or a classmate or a friend or a conversation you overheard, at some point, something that stuck with you that imprinted on you. Those imprints are part of our DNA, they're part of our memory. And they're not necessarily something that can be quantified or, codified into a machine. It's part of what creates our bias because we all have bias, right? And very different things like, for example, I hate asparagus. It's a bias that I have and I feel very strongly about, but it doesn't impact anyone else, right? And so you're bringing up such a great point where this is a corner of the world where human touch, human thought, right? The human cognition is necessary in order for us to continue business and progress in business as we are, or just evolve as a species, right? And this so it brings me to my question about that we know many leaders are facing right now, and I think both leaders and individual contributors, they're experiencing this is something that's coming through their mind. What what guidance can you give leaders when they hear or are part of the conversation that says, well, AI is going to replace me, right?
Mhm.
Or am I being replaced by AI? How do they approach that conversation?
First, validate, absolutely validate that it is completely natural fear to have. And there have been jobs that have been eliminated, right?
Yeah.
But so there's two pieces to this. One is the organization has a mission and or reason of being, and the person has a role in that. We are typically not necessarily redesigning our roles all the time. Maybe if you get a promotion and or transfer into a different role, then all of a sudden you're in a new role. But we don't necessarily redesign our roles over time. And so what happens is that inevitably everybody has a component of their job that they're like, I don't really like to do this thing or this set of things. I don't really feel that it really uses my talents that well, but I have to do it because it's part of my job. So what I tell to leaders is open up that conversation with your staff. See that this is a chance for all of us to redesign our jobs, to make them more fit our talents better, to offline or dispatch the machines to do this yucky stuff in a lot of cases that frankly are a better fit for a machine to do. People taking data from one location and moving it to another and manipulating it and running a report on it and having to rehash that over time. That should be done by a machine. Having the human be able to gain more space in their role, to look at the data, to ponder what it means, to ask questions about trends they're seeing, to use their domain expertise and their talents to make observations about what they're seeing and implications. That's a lot more interesting to do, right? And so why wouldn't somebody want to be part of redesigning their role to do more of what's interesting to them? And so instead of having the conversation focused on, we're going to lose your role, or I'm worried that my role is going to get eliminated, we shift the dialogue to the redesign discussion. And I'll tell a really great story of an organization that did just that real quick. This example is a little dated now. It's probably over 5 years old, but the principle holds. And this story, I think, helps to, and hopefully all your listeners will internalize this and can share it again and again, because it really shows that organizations that approach adopting AI with the mindset of redesign instead of efficiency, job elimination, they're just going to get better outcomes. So IKEA is a furniture and interior home product maker, and they used AI to automate basic service interactions. So a whole tier of their customer service staff were no longer needed. But instead of firing all those great people, they figured out something really cool. And that's that you used to have to go into an IKEA store to do the interior design services. You'd have to go to a counter and they would help you redesign your kitchen. Well, using technology, they moved that entire service online. So they had online interior design services. They offered to all those customer service people, would you like to be retrained as an interior design specialist? Which was cool because it was a kind of role that would leverage their customer skills already. And it gave them a new career growth path. Not everybody took the offer, but the people that stayed in customer service were moved into more complex customer service roles, which is the kind of work they want to do anyway. So you have a whole new revenue stream that the company created, and you have all of these really psyched employees that got either a growth opportunity or a more interesting job still in customer service. So that's the kind of AI adoption that I like to talk about, promote, encourage, because it does really focus in on that job redesign piece. And that can be done in a way that really benefits the organization. Either it makes them more profitable or it allows them to advance their mission faster and deeper and better. And it helps folks in their role every day be more thrilled about their job, be more fulfilled, and use their talents better.
Yeah. Yeah, and thank you for stating that example because so much of what we're seeing, especially the last 12 months, if you will, have been layoffs after layoffs. Now, not all of them are attributed to, leveraging AI into those spaces. But what I'm hearing that what IKEA has done as a company is they are investing in the technology, but they are in the innovation, but they are not leaving the humans behind,
Right,
right? That
right,
they are giving them an opportunity. And I'm sure some people said, "No, I actually don't wanna do any of that," and maybe just decided to resign. That is also too fine because you're giving people the option, right? You're saying, "We value you, and we would like to be able to give you these other offers,"
right,
right? To,
right.
elevate your role in, your existing role, and also to retrain you into another field. Now,
Yes,
instead of just giving everyone a pink slip and saying, "Have fun, good luck to you," right? Also to a meeting of the minds of understanding from a business perspective that we've got to be able to innovate in this space, but we also too need to we have a responsibility to the humans who have given us their time. They've given us their expertise because let's be honest, I've been into IKEA before and I always see the design center and it's not for me. But think about all the people who do not go into the store, but they
correct,
need that design work,
correct.
right? So to your point, they've created an entire different, business line and been able to meet the needs of their employees. So, and their greatest asset, in my opinion. So, this is such an interesting conversation, and I think one that we can continue to thread through. And I love your approach that this is really about a role redesign, right? That this is not about just cutting your losses, getting everyone out the door, and now then planning for, oh, let's have a rehire because AI is also too going to need some support. They're going to have that to your earlier point about that 40 to 60, right? That 40 to 60 rule. AI cannot do all of the heavy lifting. And if they're making the decisions for you, then they're likely going to just streamline you right alongside your competition, right?
Yes,
Instead of
exactly,
making you innovative. So
exactly.
Ah, this is such an incredible conversation. I know that, many will continue to have lots of, insights here and questions for you. So, in a moment, our next segment we're gonna move over to is the decoding the generations, but certainly want
Uh-huh.
you to get ready 'cause I know our team is going to ask or our audience is gonna ask for, "How do I connect with Dr. Michelle?" And so we'll definitely, be sharing all of that information. So,
Great.
next, I want to move us over to my favorite part of this of the podcast is where we get to have a little fun. And a segment I like to call decoding the generations, where my guest, Dr. Michelle, has selected a word or a phrase that says, "Hey, let's have a generational conversation about this." And, and tease through it a bit. So the word or phrase you chose today was word up. And this immediately took me back to my childhood. And so wanted to know, tell us a little bit about why you selected this. And then we're going to start, translating this thing.
Sure, sure. I selected Word Up because I immediately just went right back to high school. And my brother, who is 3 years younger than I, just loved music as much as I did and brought a lot of music into the home that was different than what I was listening to at the time. And so there was a lot of cacophony of different styles. And so that phrase just it was said a lot in my house and
Mhm.
inspired by music fundamentally.
Yeah.
So yeah, and it brought a lot of smiles to me just even thinking about it.
Well, the great thing is actually it ties so beautifully into our conversation today. While AI did not, I'll say, uh, did not exist in the 80s, 90s, maybe that's too far to say. That's not my wheelhouse. But and maybe it was a thought. Maybe it was, it was a thought that was starting to build. But more so about our conversation around how to kind of create that sense of belonging as we're adapting, AI into the workplace. The term is perfect for that because word up actually is intended to be a kind of like a verbal understanding of like a contract, a formation or a verbal affirmation of trust, right? And so every generation has their different understanding of or word phrase that they use that really does just translate back to word up, right? I mean, most of the audience are probably going to think immediately of Cameo, right? The song Word Up, and I will not sing it because no one wants to hear that. But but essentially what it was is it was born out of, really it was made mainstream, of course, by pop culture from Cameo, but this was born out of like the 80s hip hop era, and black vernacular, where this was something that was stated amongst friends, right? It
Yes.
also too was a verbal contract. It was, a verbal confirmation of like correct. Today generations will say, "I'll bet," right? Or say less, right? So that's how we translate it today. Boomers perhaps will accept this as, if it's delivered with the right tonality, right? They'll understand that this also too is reframed as integrity. And this was back when a handshake, where deals were made over handshakes, where your word actually meant something, right? So this is can be nostalgic, if you will, for millennials, because they'll understand the lean into what it means, and they apply that to their own language of, facts, right? Or say that. That's how they'll translate this. But essentially, and this is back to the generational work, we are all have the same intention, right, behind the things that we're doing, but we just speak about it a little differently. We execute on it a little differently. It just looks a little different across the generation. So thank you for bringing this word. I got a question about word up. So when teams start to adopt AI, what does this real kind of word up moment look like in today's environment?
Oh, that's a great question. I would say that when, again, I go back to my recommendation earlier that leaders reserve a slot in their meeting agenda for an open AI discussion and have that. When you get to the word up moment is when your teammates are freely sharing, hey, I used AI this way and it did this for me. Hey, I use AI this way and I was concerned about what I got and I took these 3 steps and I'm not sure if that's enough. What do you all think? Right. So talking about the exciting things, the benefits, to share those ways so that other people on the team can adopt those things. And then also with the high trust, sharing openly the concerns, the failures, the things that happen that really didn't end up working out that great, and crowdsourcing the ideas from their team. So when you really have both happening is when I say, aha, that team has a healthy culture of experimentation and peer-to-peer sharing, because we are all learning. I mean, you and we're learning even through this conversation. Everybody's learning about AI. People are
Yeah.
different points in the continuum or whatever, bell curve, whatever you want to call it. We're all learning. So you have to have that peer-to-peer exchange. And if you can say word up to your teammates around this, then you're in a good space. And by the way, all of us can be part of making that culture happen. Like, it doesn't have to come from a leader. You can, as a team member, say, I'd like to talk about this. Let's start with 5 minutes. And you could be the one to inspire your team to take on this conversation. It doesn't have to be, something that a senior leader or even a mid-level leader decides to do, because it's a smart thing right now to have that dialogue, and anyone can be the one to inspire that to happen.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. It's shifting the power and recognizing that everyone in that discussion has a voice. So
Yes.
Dr. Michelle, this has been such an incredible conversation. I want to thank you so much for your time and your expertise. Now, I want our audience to be able to know how they can contact you. I'm going to put a couple things on the screen, your website, and a QR code to link with you on LinkedIn. But certainly,
Sure.
tell us, how do people get a hold of you?
Yes. So you can obviously check out my website. There's a contact form on my website. I look at that every day and I'm prompt. I love talking with people. You can also scan the QR code and follow me on LinkedIn. I share my perspective about AI and organizational transformation a lot. I like doing that. And so those are basically the two main ways. And if anybody's curious, my company is named Equifinality Solutions because the word equifinality is actually a term from the natural and social sciences that means there are many paths to a goal. And that is a foundational principle of how I help my clients. We all need to figure out what paths to our goals we want to take. And there's no one right way, but it's all about exploring and finding that together. So just a quick PS on if you're wondering why I pick the name that I am operating under, that's why. But I'm really happy to talk with folks. I'm also happy to jump on the phone and have phone/video and have like a 20-minute brainstorm about AI. Share with me what's going on for you or your organization, and we can chat about it. It's no obligation. I really like talking about it, and I of course learn from y'all as much as hopefully you get some tidbits from me. So that would be another invitation for anybody who's interested.
Oh, I love that is incredibly generous. And so I would say, everyone, please certainly go to her website. Put this back on the screen and scan that QR code and connect with her on LinkedIn. Dr. Michelle is constantly moving into different spaces, speaking to all kinds of groups about AI and how to do so responsibly. In fact, it's how the two of us met at a conference. And so we just connected because this is the right conversation we should be having right now. So Dr. Michelle, thank you so much for your time today. And thank you everyone for listening. And thank you for tuning in and taking the time to, get these insights and these gems. I know there's going to be more questions that come up. And certainly just connect with us and let us know how we can support you in these areas. So if today's episode felt uncomfortably accurate, then do something about it. Share this episode with someone. Let them know what you've learned. Give them your insights. If this will help to open the door as to how AI is introduced in the space that's meaningful to you, then great. We've done our job. In the meantime, subscribe, share. We'll be having more conversation around generational translation moving forward. Until next time, take care. See you later.